middle of May. It's a Sunday. There is no better place to be than right here on the SportsGrid Network. It's time for some pro baseball today. I'm Donnie Rightside, and he is Craig Mission. Over the next 2 hours, we got you covered on every single hot topic you need to know in Major League Baseball, which includes some topics that you didn't even think could get hot in Major League Baseball. Oh, yeah, we got you covered today. And also, who's playing well, who's not, which players are hot, who are not, and so much more. The weather starting to turn in the Northeast, Craig. 90-plus degree temperatures expected into next week. I'm hot, you're hot, we're all hot. We're ready to go.
All right, great to be with you, Donnie. Another Sunday, of course, here on SportsGrid talking baseball. There's no question that we're headed toward the point in the Major League Baseball season where we're starting to identify who teams are. In fact, next week, of course, is Memorial Day, and I think at that point, that's when organizations start to take a look at their teams and decide, are we in it? Are we out of it? And I think that we'll do the same here on this Sunday as well.
So many good stuff to the teams that we'll get to, like what the heck is going on with the Kansas City Royals. The expectations were raised this year, certainly not coming to fruition. Then my Philadelphia Phillies. And could Donnie Baseball be the single best manager in the history of the sport? Whoa, we'll find out sooner than later. But Craig, these topics start to roll along. And so many times we start this show, ooh, this guy's hit a lot of home runs. Yeah, we'll get to Kyle Schwarber. Hey, this guy's playing well for the Washington Nationals. Keep an eye on this young talent. But how about this one? The Los Angeles Dodgers, oh, did they sign somebody new? Did they make a huge trade? No, it's Edwin Diaz, and I'll start here, Craig, being linked to illegal cockfights here. That's not a headline I thought we'd be talking about on a Sunday morning. Pro Baseball Today.
Yeah, I didn't either, but, that's why we have Sam here to go over the hot topics in baseball. It's, 1 minute and 8 seconds into the show, not Schwarber. But cockfighting, to begin the show today. You can't make it up. Look, I mean, obviously it's a little bit just of a distraction, I think, when Diaz comes back. It's something that he'll have now on his resume. It won't show up on the back of the baseball card. But naturally, Donnie, I do think that in the end, not much will happen with this. It's a funny story. It's obviously not good because it is banned virtually everywhere, except for, I guess, the one place where he's doing it. But, I personally think that this is something that it feels like to me, somebody's got a vendetta, Like, Donnie, there must have been a cockfight where Edwin Diaz's animals were doing too well. And somebody wanted to put this out there. I can't think of any other reason why.
And the odd part about it is, like, most organizations, and particularly the Dodgers, like, you have great PR personnel here that can get out in front of this story and somebody might tip them off. Here's the interesting part. If we bring up the Talkin' Baseball tweet, Craig, it says Edwin Diaz obviously linked to illegal cockfights per USA Today. But the quote, it's legal in Puerto Rico, thank God. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I feel safe here. The cockfighting arena is like my home. And then you see the note below it. A federal ban on cockfighting took effect in Puerto Rico in 2019. Then we go to an underdog tweet, which I actually thought it might have been like Underdog Onion. Like, the NBA has NBA Central and Centel, which you laugh at. Here's another quote. My rooster went down dead and got up to fighting, doing what my roosters know how to do, finish fights. He did what I do when I come in to pitch in the ninth, close out the game. This is incredible because there's a leap that we'll get into with the NFL, which we've seen before with Michael Vick. But just the story itself is not a good look, as opposed to, you know what? It was wrong. I haven't been doing it in, months at this point right now. I want to show my contrition at this point. He's the opposite right now. Love it. It's legal. Like, I'll come in the game, and just like my, cockfighters are doing right now, they'll handle their business the way I do. It's such an odd look right now where the PR staff is probably scratching their head.
Yeah, the other thing, Donnie, is we've had several days since this story has come out, and I have not seen any issued apology for the statement or anything else. So I suppose if you're Edwin Diaz and you're making the kind of money that he is, you figure you could just throw some money at this eventually legally and make it go away. But yeah, I mean, it was not on my list of things to talk about this week going in, but naturally a very bizarre story that I think probably will just go away pretty quickly. But naturally, when something like this happens, you do get remembered for that. And Edwin Diaz is now awkwardly remembered for two things. One, getting hurt celebrating in the World Baseball Classic. I think a lot of people remember that, missing a full year. And now this.
I mean, the jokes were rolling along yesterday on Twitter as well, which you knew they would right away. Like, do his roosters come out or whatever, and have the trumpets playing in the background before they start the fight. So that's going down the hill. But let me ask you this question, Craig, because more than a legality here, professional sports don't like to be embarrassed and like to get out in front of these stories. Now, Michael Vick in the NFL, he was fighting dogs, went to jail for it. I'm not saying that Edwin Diaz is going to go to jail for this, but what happens from Major League Baseball and the Dodgers? Is there anything like you're going to have to pay a fine? You have to issue an apology, a 3-game suspension? Does anything happen to Edwin Diaz? Because again, Major League Baseball and the story and the Dodgers embarrassed by it here. You don't have to wait for the legalities. You can do something about it. Do we think something might be done here? No.
Well, he's out, and that's part of it. So maybe something would come down when he does come back in a couple of months from now. But my sense is that how much Major League Baseball is going to investigate, basically going to Puerto Rico and figuring out what is happening and what is not in this. I don't see much, honestly, Donnie, coming out of it. And again, Diaz can say that, his words were taken out of context. He can also double down back on it and say, hey, I did say that I did it, but I really didn't. I personally think that Edwin Diaz will be pitching in the postseason and even in the World Series if the Dodgers get there. So I don't think anything crazy comes out of this at all.
Yeah, different cultures. Sometimes they clash with other cultures here. We'll see what comes up. But as Craig pointed out, it was an interesting story that popped up this week that you probably would have thought tuning in now, like, what? Where did I miss this story? Yeah, it's actually going down in Major League Baseball. I'll tell you what else is going down in Major League Baseball. That's somebody's batting average. That's somebody's power stroke. And quite frankly, Craig, I can't figure it out. The Toronto Blue Jays sit at 20-25 right now, under 500 and underperforming. How about Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? He's talking about his slump, and I quote, I'm just looking to hit one ball very hard, and it'll stay in my head and in my mind. I know things are going to change. May from Vladdy, a 118 batting average, not a single extra base hit. Craig, it's not May 4th right now. It is May 17th. Vladdy doesn't have an extra base hit in the month of May. What's going on?
Yeah, well, look, I think there's two things that can be true. Let's start with the first. The first is that he was one of the most dominant players in last year's postseason. And really, I think finally, over the course of his career, absolutely lived up to the billing of being one of the best players in baseball. But we can also say, I think personally, that the player is a little overrated. I think that's fair to say, too. I think his popularity is obviously due to his play, but also due to the fact his father was a Hall of Famer. He's still a really good player that if you look at the back of the baseball card, you don't see MVP type seasons. You see really good to great type seasons. And so this isn't coming as a big surprise. Now, when the moment was biggest, he came up the biggest. And so we have to acknowledge that because without him, the Blue Jays do not get to the World Series last year. But what's funny to me is in the end, Donnie, Guerrero's numbers are going to be 20-25 home runs. They're going to be 80-85 runs driven in. And this is kind of who he is. He is not the Hall of Famer that his dad was. It doesn't make him a bad player by any means. But I do think he tends to be, at least for me, one of the more talked about and overrated players for a player that's just, really good. That's it.
Sometimes, Craig, you get those elevation of numbers early on in your career, and you're right. 2021. How about 48 home runs, 111 RBI,
and that was it.
A 311 batting average, Craig, and a 6.3 WAR for that season. So you start there, and you're young, saying, "Well, the sky is the limit. Is this guy the next Albert Pujols? We're going to get 40 to 50 home runs every year for the next 15 years," and it hasn't happened. 32 home runs, 26 home runs, 30 home runs. And last year, Craig, a 292 batting average, which will take, but the power number is 23 home runs and the RBI at 84, and the power stroke just not here. And even for myself, it's one of those where you play in the American League East. And even in Toronto, as we know, two years ago, making the adjustments to the ballpark, making it smaller, hitting at Yankee Stadium, you're hitting at Fenway Park, you're hitting in Baltimore and outside of Tampa. All of those are really good environments. I looked at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It's not, I don't want to say a bounce back season is the wrong thing, but I expected the elevation of numbers. And you might say slow start coming off, but Craig, this isn't a slow start. This is disastrous for Vladdy.
No, and he's been a second half kind of guy, so that's going to happen in the second half, and he'll end up having a really good season. But to your point, having that one great year that he had in 2021, I just remember how everyone was talking about, wow, this is a bona fide future Hall of Famer. Doesn't matter what position he plays. And now, I'm just not so sure. But again, it takes nothing away from the player as an individual. Yeah. It's not his fault. His last name is Guerrero. We had high expectations to begin with. He met them. But unfortunately, since then, he's still been a really good player, participating in home run derbies and the like. But I just don't think a superstar type guy.
We'll see if Vladdy get that energy back, heat and humidity coming in. Maybe the home runs will follow. It's Donnie right side. It's Craig Mish. We'll be back after this short break. Right back at it, Pro Baseball today on a Sunday. Donnie right side and Craig Mish here, going over some players that have really kicked it in the high gear, these hot stories. And I'll tell you right now, the expectations for the New York Yankees, they're always high on a year-to-year basis. The frontline pitching staff, the power in the middle of that lineup, the bullpen that's usually paid very well and sometimes doesn't perform as if they're paid. But how about Cam Schlittler, young guy in Major League Baseball, 10 starts on this Major League Baseball season, Craig. How about 60 innings pitched? How about 68 Ks? How about a 1.35 ERA, a .78 whip, a batting average against 168, and a K per walk ratio, 6.18. He has been we're still waiting on Garrett Cole to get back in this lineup, but Schlittler pitching like the best pitcher in the majors right now. Could it be, Craig?
Yeah, we'll have to get back to this here in a minute with Garrett Cole because they're going to need him pretty quickly with one of the injuries that they had this past week. But look, I think right now it is fair to say that he's pitching like the very best pitcher in the American League. I still, of course, would lean towards Skeens in the National League. But that being said, you know, when you look at this, and I'm not saying that Luis Heel a few years ago was anywhere near what Schlittler was, but I remember these same conversations in April, like this is one of the best pitchers in baseball. And it tends to happen with the Yankees. So for me, like with the odds, and we'll talk about it later in the show, I'll probably pivot and think maybe this is someone else. Will the Yankees let Schlittler throw 170 innings this season? I mean, I just don't see it. So I don't know how they work this out. Naturally, they're playing for the postseason. They're playing for a World Series. But to me, he has been the most dominant pitcher in the AL. But I wonder, Donnie, and I've mentioned this before, Jose Soriano is not going to be the Cy Young Award winner, okay? He is not. And he's not having as good a year as Cam Schlittler. But if you put Jose Soriano in a Yankees uniform and you put Schlittler in an Angels uniform, I guarantee you the odds on FanDuel and DraftKings would be a lot shorter than they are right now. I'm just saying.
Yep. It would. That Yankee tax certainly to get going this summer on some of these guys hoping to win awards. But we talk about the New York Yankees and quite frankly throughout Major League Baseball, we'll get to some other teams as well. Boys, frontline starting pitching is a commodity that you must have. If you can go through the attrition throughout a summer and still have guys healthy for the postseason, you should be on your way. But as we talk about the Yankees, say, wow, Cam Schlittler's been fantastic. You take a look at Garrett Cole coming back. But Max Fried has been very good in the Yankees uniform. Oh, no. Max Fried now undergoing an MRI and a CT scan on Thursday that was followed up by an examination with the Yankees team physician, Chris Ahmad, placed on the 15-day IL. We even have more updates here. But whenever you hear, Craig, Dr. Neil Elitrosh is reviewing things. That cannot be a good sign.
It does appear that Fried is going to be out for an extended period of time. What that means, I'm not sure. Does it mean 3 months? Does it mean 5 months? I mean, it's kind of hard to say, but you can pretty much rest assured that there's a chance we don't see Fried back before the All-Star break. I think that's fair at this point. This is a devastating loss. He has been a great, not good, but great pitcher for the New York Yankees and super consistent ever since he came over. And yes, the good news for them, it's bad news, good news. The good news for them is they have Garrett Cole waiting in the wings, and here we go, right? He's going to be back within, I would say, 5 days, 6 days. He'll be back, I'm sure, this week. But naturally, you hate to see this for anyone, in particular Fried, who's just, again, been so reliable. You know, he's always that guy, Donnie, that is going to finish like top 3 in the Cy Young or top 4. Probably not going to win it just because he's just too consistent. But I hope for the best for Fried. They'll want him back, of course, for the postseason, but getting Rodon healthy and getting Cole healthy will at least soften this blow a little bit, I think.
Yeah, that Brian Hoke tweet, which you see on the screen right now, Max Fried's imaging was reviewed by Dr. Neil Elitrosh, who agreed with Yankees team physician Chris Ahmad. He remains in no-throw mode, which it's like you talk about like a player, like, hey, I hurt my hamstring, I hurt my calf, ramping up here. When a pitcher goes in the no-throw mode, it's almost like he has to go back to spring training here and ramp back up. It's going to take some time, but the Yankees do afford some time. Still up there at the top of the standings in the AL East, but more importantly, you're getting some great pitching from some other spots here where you can afford to sort of slow down the process and get, hopefully, some good news back on Max Fried. Sometimes you take a look at pitchers and it's just a bad break. We talked about Max Fried right there. It's like, oh no, arm issues here, loose bodies that we heard so many times throughout the first months of the season. But how about Clay Holmes? He's been that rock in that Mets starting rotation, now down for 6 to 8 weeks as he broke his fibula on a comebacker. For the Mets, who seem like they just can't get out of the way on the field, now being injured just about every single day, something new pops up. This was one they could ill afford. And Clay Holmes will be down, Craig, for at least 2 months. Ouch.
So he joins Francisco Lindor, and, to David Stearns' credit, this was a really good signing in Clay Holmes for the New York Mets. People forget that sometimes not all the moves are bad. This was a really good move for the Mets. Now, right, there's 2 sides to this. The first is, of course, the Mets probably out of it, and you got to wonder if Holmes even comes back at any point, Donnie. I think that's a fair question to ask. Do we just see him at the end of the season? The other thing is that the Mets do have some pretty talented kids in the minors. We're going to get a chance, I think, this week to see a major league debut, whether it's early in the week or whether it's later in the week, Memorial Day weekend, when the Mets travel to Miami. But they're going to have to piece it together. We saw, I think, over the weekend them use an opener already. Like, they've gone to openers at this point. That could be a way that the Mets try and piece it together. They've played better baseball, and I certainly think, Donnie, and we'll discuss the Mets a little bit later. I think the Mets probably play 500 baseball the rest of the season, but they dug themselves such a big a hole. That means they're still going to lose 87, 88 games, something like that, and that's probably not in the postseason picture.
Anger at Citi Field right now. Typically, you talk about pitchers and having elbow issues and being shut down for the season. How about Jordan Westbrook? It's not a pitcher. It's an actual infielder here, undergoing elbow surgery to miss the whole season. You look at the Baltimore Orioles, Craig, 20-26 right now. We're waiting for them to jumpstart themselves. Injuries ain't going to help out here for sure.
Yeah, the Westbrook injury is just another blow, I think, for the Orioles season that looks like it's going nowhere. You do have to wonder, in terms of Westbrook, what happened here? Because basically, why is this happening now? Why didn't it happen back in April or even at the end of spring training? Really bizarre situation there. I think I saw they're going to sign Tommy Pham, try and get some offense there against left-handed pitching. Look, the reality here, Donnie, is that they just hired a new manager in Craig Albernaz, and I know he's very good and very well liked. And I saw the team play here. They're still playing hard. But I don't think there's any doubt, Donnie, that if this trend continues and the Orioles have a really rough season, you could see a lot of changes. Remember, they're only a couple of years from this new owner, David Rubenstein, taking over. And I'm sure now he's, usually when the owners take over, it feels like they got to get a couple of years before they sort of feel things out here a little bit. It has not gone well for the Orioles. It's been a very disappointing team.
Well, good for the Dodgers here as we flip it over to them. They seem to have endless money, endless prospects, and endless players. And maybe, Craig, they're going to need them this year as well. We've talked so much already about Glass now having his issues. How about Blake Snell? Likely to undergo surgery to address the loose bodies in his elbow. More on the timeline of how the Dodgers are going to adjust. Matty Lee had to send out this tweet. Whenever you're in loose bodies, you're down for some time. That Dodgers rotation seems to every single start they get, Craig. We're hearing injury issues from frontline guys.
Yeah, Glass now, Blake Snell. Jeez. Unfortunately for Snell, it's been more of the same, honestly, Donnie, for Snell over the years. But they do have some good news coming back. This kid in the minors who looked so good for them a couple of years ago, River Ryan, is coming back from injury. He's going to go right into that rotation, Donnie. The rich just get richer with this team. Don't matter.
Who's hot? Coming up next. Stick with us. Go over the summer where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like that.
To test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, okay. You don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. By the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Couple of dominant pitchers, couple dominant players here in Major League Baseball with a focus here on some National League guys doing some damage. You take a look at the standings here in the NL East. It is the Braves. Damn good franchise. 31-15 right now in first place. Second place, though, tied now. We'll get to the Philadelphia Phillies, but how about those Washington Nationals? And how about Darren Lyle on fire this week? Actually had a stretch, Craig. 4 games, 4 home runs with 272 on the season, 7 bombs, 25 RBIs, and an OPS of 788. Some of those young players starting to step up to the plate here for those Nats and get the job done. Dalen Lyle, he's one of them.
Yeah, he's done a really good job. The Nationals have the most runs scored in baseball. I did not see that happening at the beginning of the season. So really good offense for them as they piece their pitching together, and that's even with trading Mackenzie Gore in the offseason. But Lyle basically has just come alive. We saw at the end of the season how good he was last year. Now he's off to another nice start this year. Washington, a sneaky kind of team. I don't think that they're a postseason team, but I got to say, going into next year, and this hasn't been a team that's not been afraid to go after some pitchers and players in free agency. It wouldn't surprise me to see Washington take a big step next year. I don't love the bottom of their lineup, but I would say 1 through 4, 1 through 5, it's comparable to some of the other lineups in that division. So they've done a nice job.
Yeah, a lot of big names moved out of Washington over the past couple of years, waiting for some of those young kids to actually kick it in, and being 500 here for the Washington Nationals. They're only 500. Been a long time since this team this late into the season roaming around 500. And again, as I talked about, second place right now in the NL East. Let's go to another team that's technically in second place as well in the NL East. It's the Philadelphia Phillies, who were buried, Craig, at 8-18 on the season. Changes had to be made. Donnie Baseball comes in as the manager, and all they do is win series after series. Now understand this. Once your frontline starting pitching starts to kick in, like Christopher Sanchez, who's been dominant, once your top bats like Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber kick in, you start to win some games with Schwarbs. 20 bombs, Craig, on the regular season. And in Philadelphia, we usually wait till June for Schwarber to start kicking in. How about those power statistics here? A 237 average, which is usually what he's going to hit. An OPS, 1.007. 20 bombs, 36 RBI. Every game I turn on, Craig, I'm expecting a home run for Schwarber. The guy is locked in at the plate.
Yeah, you may want to turn your notifications off for home runs for this guy because you're just going to get blown up all day long. I mean, it's really insane what he's off to, and on pace to hit 70+ home runs this season. And certainly we don't think that's going to happen. Also consider that April was kind of slow for Kyle Schwarber. He really didn't do anything. And then I saw him a few weeks ago here in Miami, and I believe he struck out 5 times or 6 times in a row, something like that. But it just shows you what this guy is made of. I know Harper also homered for them over the weekend too. It's funny. It's like you hear like the nickname Default Donnie, like they went to default there and they ended up with Don Mattingly as manager, and he's done a really good job. But, to your point, Donnie, I don't think that Don Mattingly is making this team good. Like, that's not happening. I know Donnie very, very well, but what he is great at doing is sort of stabilizing and bringing all the players who they are to their water, So everybody who is not doing so good, you're going to be back to who you were again. Make sure the clubhouse is good and even. And the good news for him, too, is that let's fast forward a few months from now.
Yeah.
The Phillies win 85, 86, 87, maybe 90 games. I think Don Mattingly is going to be back managing that team against next year, Donnie.
What he's been doing, Craig, which a lot of people have been working out, is he's an old school baseball guy, getting back to the fundamentals and the foundation, talking about why you're not hitting well, why we're not fielding well. Their fielding has really picked up since he's been manager. But also understand this. Rob Thompson went through a really tough schedule slate where they weren't playing good baseball and losing to good baseball teams. The competition hasn't been up to the same level, but they're winning games, and all you need to do is get your superstars playing well, and good things happen, and that's what's happening right now. I'll tell you what's not happening so well right now, record-wise. Who is it? The Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah, but they still got Dylan Cease on the mound. His last 3 starts, Craig, 21 innings pitched, 1.71 ERA, 26 Ks, and only 4 walks. On the season, 3-1 overall at 241. At least something is going well there for the Blue Jays.
Baseball free agency, just generally speaking, it tends to not go very well. You tend to look around the league and say, oh, what a bad signing, what a bad signing. This is a good one. This is one of those where I don't know how it's going to work out. But he's been one of the most impactful signings in baseball from a starting pitcher. Looks to be worth the money that the Blue Jays spent. He's been great. Even before you see his last 3 starts, he was still very good as well. His strikeouts are up. And most importantly for Cease, he's not walking anyone. So what left is there to say? He's the frontline starter and the ace of the Blue Jays. Unfortunately for them, the rest of the team just hasn't gone very well.
How about the ultra-competitive National League Century? Cubs, Brewers, Cardinals, Pirates, Reds in that order. If you would have told the Reds, hey, by the way, you're a couple games over 500 midway through May, but you're in last place. What? How good is this division? Well, as I told you, it's very competitive. But Chase Burns holding down the fort, Craig. 19 innings pitched over his last 3 starts. .47 ERA, 16 Ks, 6 walks here. Getting the job done for the Reds right now. Stellar ERA.
Yeah, the Reds are going through some injury problems as well. I was surprised that they had that long losing streak. I still think they're very much in it. I'm not going to back off them off my pick to make the postseason, but they're going to need more starts like this. I believe they signed Chris Paddock, by the way, who pitched over the weekend for them as well. It shows you desperation has set in.
I'll tell you, and how about this? Teams that are hot right now. Who would have thought in the middle of May we'd be talking about the Cardinals and also their fan base? Let's get to it next. Under the radar, to put it nicely here. Teams that are hot in Major League Baseball, usually it's the big guys, the big boys in the big divisions with the big payroll. But every single year, come on now. Rays can't do it again. They lost more players here. Looking at their starting, who are these guys? Never heard of half of them here. It doesn't matter. Last year, playing outside in heat and humidity, I loved it, Craig. Like, ooh, this is where you want to be with Tampa Bay. Betting games, team total to the over. Now we get back to Trop baseball, and as you take a look midway through May, you know who's in first place in the AL East? It's not the New York Yankees. It's the Tampa Bay Rays with a 2-game lead over the New York Yankees. 29-15 on the season, 7-3 in their last 10. You take a look at their last 5 ball games. What is it with the Rays? Is it the front office, Craig? Is that you get lulled to sleep by playing?
You could keep hiring all their executives, and I guess if you look at the Dodgers, you could say, well, you know, Andrew Friedman, he ran the Rays. He's running the Dodgers. They're winning the World Series. And they've had a lot of really good executives to come out of there. But, Donnie, they just find different ways to beat you, whether it is playing great defense or constantly bunting the ball or trading some of their best players and everyone's freaking out. And then the next guy up is just as good, if not better, than the last guy. Player development is just out of this world. Not to mention, every bullpen guy they bring in, Donnie, looks so strange. It's like, this guy throws sidearm, this guy throws 100, but he also throws 80. Like, it is just they have a plan, they stick to it, and it tends to work. Now, the difference with the Rays over the last year or two, Donnie, as opposed to like those kind of, they had a couple of middling years there where they didn't win like 90, 95 games, is all of a sudden now they have Junior Caminero, right? Like Caminero's become a star. Jonathan Aranda's a really good player too. And so with all of these fundamental things that you have to have a couple of big guys too, you know, like you have to have that. Yeah. They definitely have it figured out. If you're a Rays fan, it's a fun team to watch. And if you're playing on the other side, you literally don't know what this team is going to do. Are they going to double steal? Are they going to try and bunt for a hit? No, they're going to pull the bat back. No, they're going to bunt. I mean, it's wild watching them play. And Saturday's game in particular, you know, this was a game that went into extra innings, and the only reason why they lost this one is because they got blown up in the 10th. So I would say, Donnie, very high probability for me that they're in the American League Championship Series. I really do think that. I don't know if they're going to win it all. And sometimes you run into these teams that add players at the deadline. I don't know the Rays are going to do that. But if there's any prop for the ALCS, I think they get there.
Let me ask you a question, too, Craig, because as you said, like you've been in the stadium there at the Trop, and of course your home base there, Lone Depot Park, is a dome. I've been to a Miami Marlins game versus the Philadelphia Phillies. You go into the ballpark, it's brand spanking. It feels like a ballpark, roof closed or roof not. What's the feel in the Trop? Because I love ballparks to go to, football stadiums, hockey arenas, whatever they might be. What is the feeling when you get into the Trop? Is it awkward? Like, because from your home base in Miami to Tampa, like when you walk in, what's the first feeling that you get there?
Yeah, well, I actually was there for the first year of the Trop too, and I guess that's kind of the problem is that, you know, Donnie, their fan base is really good. They're very passionate. We all know that they have attendance issues, just like Miami has attendance issues too. Yeah. And you think about them in first place and playing so well, they're still at the bottom of attendance. It's just the nature of Florida. But Donnie, when they built that stadium, you have to go way back when they built it for the Chicago White Sox. That's why they built that stadium, because they thought the White Sox were going to relocate and go there. So that just tells you how old that dome is. And there's a reason why you see all kinds of legislation and press conferences this past week. They need a new retractable roof home and a new dome. So it's not awkward. It's not bad. It's fun to watch a game there. But it's, you know, it has the feel of, you know, an early 90s, mid 90s stadium that needs upgrades. And what can you really do with a dome like that? You can't do anything. So I enjoy it. I think it's fine. My son had a great time, too. I think it's a good atmosphere for kids, but they need a new place. That's it. Soon, next 10 years, they have to have a new home.
They've held a lot. I remember back in the mid-1990s, the Flyers would play the Tampa Bay Lightning in that. I think it was it called the Thunderdome? What was the original name?
Yeah, I was there too. Yeah. I sat in games and watched them play there as well. Half the stadium was like shuttered, you know, and then the other half you watch a hockey game. I just feel bad with a franchise. I mean, Donnie, they're the winningest baseball franchise in the last 20 years in Major League Baseball. I mean, it is very clear that it's been a really well-run team.
And by the way, shout out Tampa here in Philadelphia. When Tampa last got to the World Series, they didn't win it. Why? Because those fighting Phils won it at that point. So we love Tampa here in Philadelphia. And by the way, Clearwater, great little town just outside there. Fantastic. Why? Because, again, the Phillies play spring training there. Enough of the Phillies. Let's get to the Brew Crew. Doesn't matter who the manager is. Doesn't matter who the players are. You want to trade away some frontline starting pitching. You want to not spend any money in free agency. And then you find yourself, the Brewers got to be down near the bottom. No, they're not, Craig. 26-17 on the season, a game and a half out of first place to the Chicago Cubs. The Brewers, to me, Craig, they have that Tampa Bay feeling. We don't have to spend the most money, but we're going to be damn competitive every single year, once again, in the midst of everything here in 2026.
Yeah, well, originally their guys came from Tampa, so it shouldn't be a surprise there. Nope. A few weeks ago, Donnie, we were looking at the Brewers saying, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the year that and again, they just figure out a way to pitch and fight, and they're doing a fantastic job. Pat Murphy is a great manager, maybe top 5 manager in baseball, if not better. He's already won Manager of the Year, and he is actually worth those 2 wins or 3 wins that you sometimes get with a really good manager as well. So the Brewers just keep rolling on. They took care of the Padres, and then they had a good start Friday and Saturday, of course, against the Twins. And, we can hit on other teams later, but the Twins, Donnie, that's one team I will get right at the beginning of the season. This is an awful, awful team. Minnesota is Donnie, bad team. Strange to me that they didn't just tear it all down in the offseason. They can't run, they can't score, they can't hit. Only 1 really or 2 viable pitchers on that team. So the wins are wins, but it's going to be a very long year for Minnesota.
We thought it might be a long year for another team, and that's the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, Scott Rowland was a Philadelphia Philly. He said, you know what? I don't really like this organization. I want to go to baseball heaven, which is St. Louis. And over the years, that's been an absolute quality franchise from ownership all the way down through to the minor league system, falling on a little bit of hard times and not a lot of expectations coming into the season. But as we just talked about the Milwaukee Brewers, 26-17, you take a look here. How about this? 27-18, the St. Louis Cardinals here on the season. Baseball heaven. Is it back here? Craig, the beginning of the season, hey, kids, just come to the ballpark, pay $20, get all the food you can eat because we don't know if our baseball team is going to be all that competitive. Oh, they've been competitive, Craig, and they're at the top of the standings in the Central. How about the rebirth of baseball heaven, those St. Louis Cardinals?
This is easily my biggest misfire of the season if the Twins were a fire. I can't believe how well the Cardinals have played. And, their management, and Chaim Bloom, Donnie, would never in an interview say that this is not what we want, but this is not what they expected. I would tell you that. Like the Cardinals traded basically everyone they had in the offseason, and anybody else would get traded at the deadline this season. Now, all of a sudden, they have to kind of pivot and go the other way. I'll just plant the flag and say I'm going to stick with what I thought, that the Cardinals were a sub 500 team, but they have been a huge surprise to me. And I guess sometimes players, Donnie, you can't count them out. Jordan Walker was a player that you thought was on the edge of just not being with the organization anymore. He spent all these years not playing well. Now all of a sudden he is. So credit to them. And I don't know, can they get away with trading Gorman and Burleson, Donnie, at the deadline and trading some of the? I don't know that they can right now. They probably have to push toward the division. They never thought this would be the case.
By the way, great fans as well in St. Louis, which we have a little bit later in the show. You're going to want to check that out. But how about those Philadelphia Phillies, 8-18 on the season, now sit at 23-23? All it took, Craig, was Donnie Baseball to take over and say, I got this. Or was it Schwarber going nuclear every night? Bryce Harper back to being elite himself, and the frontline starting pitching, which includes Christopher Sanchez, who was filthy yesterday against the Pirates. The Fightins are back, and the people of Philadelphia were rejoicing, Craig. We're ready to bury this team.
Before the Marlins played the Rays a couple of weeks ago, JT Realmuto, who played for the Marlins, who I've known for a really long time, when this all happened, and he's very, very honest to a T. So I would tell you, he told me straight up, he's like, go back and look at our schedule and look who we played and look how hot those teams were. The Phillies were still very confident that things were going to turn around, and he was right. They have.
You're hearing from Craig Mitch. Did I hear Craig talk about the Phillies winning the World Series? Love it, love it. We'll be right back. Come on. If you go over the summer where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down, you ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans, currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like that.
To test them a little bit.
I like
It's
that a lot.
Oh, yeah, okay, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that it's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
You know, we're about a month and a half into the season, and sometimes you look at this and say, you know, you are what your record says you are. Slow start here, playing, you know, minimal amount of games. In the tone of Major League Baseball, you know, the full season is a lot more to go. But, Craig, I look and say to myself, before the season starts, expectations on certain teams where you get a vibe for, like, maybe this is the season where they really step up. One of those teams, it was the Kansas City Royals for me. And I guess it's a bad omen now, Craig, where it's, hey, we're going to redo our ballpark and bring the fences in. Yes, more home runs. The batters will tear it up. And it just seems like when we do this, the batters go backwards. I don't know what's wrong with Kansas City, but I look at that lineup. Give me Vinny Pasquantino. Yeah, he's batting .201 on the season. Oh, no, Salvador Perez. He's always going to be there. He's under 200, Craig. What have you seen from the Royals? What the heck is going on there?
Yeah, also high expectations for Jack Caglione, and so a lot of young players that just really haven't come through, and you really can't rely on Salvador Perez at this point. They also thought their pitching would be better than what it is, and, you know, naturally Witt's going to do the job, and, you know, they have a lot of Michael Garcia. They do have some pieces here. So naturally, what happens, Donnie, in this spot? Like, what happens when you have a team with talent coming off a season last year where you're just like expecting at the very worst them to be similar to what they were a year ago, and now here they are getting swept by the White Sox, losing a series to the Cardinals. The arrow, unfortunately, is pointing for a good guy, Matt Quartaro. Where did he come from? Of course, Donnie, bench coach of the Tampa Bay Rays, and you know, great job with the Royals last year and even the year before. But Donnie, he's in the firing line right now. You know, that it's just unfortunate. It's the way the game goes. If they lose 100 or 90, they're probably going to go another direction. They can't fall this far back, especially when they're looking to expand or even get a new stadium, things of that nature. So I don't have the answers, Donnie, because the team is too good to be this bad. That's just a fact. The team is too good to play this poorly.
It's a fun roster, it is. You're just waiting for some of those young kids to step up, and it's all going backwards, it feels like, at the same time. And also, you look at schedules, like we talked about the Philadelphia Phillies, and you brought up JT Realmuto. Man, we were playing some good baseball teams that were on a run. Most times you would say the schedule, whew, thank goodness. A couple games against the White Sox here, a couple games against St. Louis, just what we need. They're on a 6-game losing streak right now, maybe getting swept on Sunday here from the St. Louis Cardinals that you'll find out a little bit later. Just not working out. One of the teams with the expectations of World Series or bust has always been the Houston Astros. But sooner than later, your luck runs out or your talent runs out or Father Time just catches up to your team. And that's the Astros. 19-28 on this Major League Baseball season. 4-6 in the last 10 games. They've won the past 2, but the Astros just like the running on fumes right now. And is it time, Craig, where they look and say, hit the reset button. Some of these aging veterans here, flip them for prospects, because the Astros right now, they don't look like a playoff contender to me this year, Craig.
No, and it's funny that Christian Walker's having such a nice year. That was a big signing for them a year ago, and then they just, it sounded like they just wanted to get rid of him, and now he's actually played well. But too many injuries, Donnie, have struck them with the pitching, with Carlos Correa, up and down the roster. I believe they have the most time on the IL of any team in baseball. And let's just be honest, even with healthy players, they just were not that good of a team. Take nothing away from all the success they've had over the last decade. They should get a ton of credit. But you're right, Donnie. Probably, I think, time to trade some pieces. And the biggest piece of all that they would have potentially to trade at the deadline would be a guy who hasn't played a game this season. What in the world? Josh Hader has still not pitched. It's, in May. I know he's getting ready to come back here. But to me, Donnie, that's a very important note. They need to get him pitching so they can trade him, because if he's pitching well, Donnie, some team that's chasing down a World Series is going to give up a lot for that player, and I think it's time for the Astros to make some of those moves in a couple months.
You're exactly right. When you take a look at those dominant relievers, it doesn't have any point to have a dominant reliever when you're under 500, not going to make the playoffs here at this point. As opposed to a young, positional player, a young starting pitcher. Yeah, we'll keep him around. No, you flip those guys for big-time prospects, and you certainly move on at this point here. The San Francisco Giants, we've been topic after topic after topic on this show. Why? Not necessarily because of the play on the field, but the Buster Posey in the front office, taking a risk there, bringing in Vitello over from the SEC in Tennessee, and how's that going to work out? But each and every week we look at the standings, and we always find them at the bottom of those standings. 19-27 on the season for the Giants, 5-5 in their last 10 games, which again isn't bad. But we're waiting for sort of that level to happen in San Francisco. It's way too much talent on this baseball team, Craig, to be at 19-27 on the season. Expectations maybe to win that division? Probably not, because you have the Los Angeles Dodgers, but the expectations to be San Francisco at least around 500 through a month and a half in the season, that should have been right. They're just not performing all that well right now.
Yeah, they're going through it and really didn't get a ton better in the offseason. It felt like just getting Devers was going to be the secret sauce for them to win some games. He's played better over the last few days and week than he has all season, but a negative WAR player, arguably for a contract that big, that just can't happen, Donnie. Like, you can't make that kind of mistake on a player, and we'll see if he, at the end of the year, finds what he's supposed to be. But look, could the Giants play 500 ball the rest of the season? Absolutely. But what does that put them? 8 games under 500, right? So if they do that now. So not a completely lost season. And for most people that I talk to, no one seems to think it is the manager. It's just the talent on the roster is not there. They're also going to have to figure out a way to secure free agents when they go after getting some free agents that they really want. And then what happens, Donnie, is when you don't get Judge and you don't get Correa and you don't get Yamamoto, what do? You spend bad money on somebody else, just to get a guy. And that's happened a lot for them recently.
Getting in a panic mode at this point here. I'll tell you who's never on panic mode. It's the Los Angeles Angels. Hey, enjoy the weather, enjoy the ball club, and come out to the ballpark, Craig. And over the past couple years, it's the same old story. The last place Los Angeles Angels at 16-30 on the season, losers of 5 straight games, 3-7 in their last 10. Do we ever get anything good coming out of LA besides the Dodgers, who just are just a huge shadow caster over those Angels? They don't play good baseball. The expectations are never high, and just waiting for them to hit the restart button, and they never restart anything except they're losing.
No, I don't know the comparison that I can make. I'm trying to think of a team like in the NBA that goes through this, sort of every year. I know the team in the NFL that does it, I would compare it to. It's like the Raiders. Raiders finally got Mendoza, but like you've been waiting like 10 years for the Raiders to be good. Every year, no. Every year, no. Every year, no. It's the same thing with the Angels. It's just, unfortunately for them, it's a total joke. The team is awful. They looked awful going into the season. They're probably going to finish with the worst record in the American League. Should come as a surprise to nobody. They can't beat anybody good. Their pitching is horrendous. They have, their hitting's actually okay. They have like 3 or 4 decent hitters. They signed their manager. What do they give him? A 1-year contract. What does that tell you? 1 year for a new manager. I mean, that tells you basically, we're not so sure, but go ahead and lead the team. Oh, gosh, it must stink to be an Angels fan. They've
had unbelievable position players, but as long as I've been alive, it's like, hey, Donnie, who's the best Angels pitcher you've ever seen? Who has it been? No idea.
Chuck Finley.
They never can get starting pitching out there at this point. It's Pro Baseball Today. We roll along the hot topics. They'll come on next. People love things that are organic, Craig. I don't eat organic all that much. Take me out to McDonald's and stuff. I'm pretty much sure that's not all that organic. But fan bases that do organic things here, Craig, I thoroughly enjoy. How about this tweet from Benjamin Hockman here? In the bottom of the ninth here at Busch, this is actually from Friday night, 3-3, a group of about 100 young people went into an open section, started waving shirts over their head and chanting a soccer chant. More kids joined them. Now the section is completely full, and the stadium organist is playing the chant. If you don't know what's going on, check out this video right here, what they were doing. Craig, energy in the stadium. I love it. Sounds like Penn State at kickoff right there. And sometimes people get upset. Oh, the wave, that's ridiculous. Pay attention to the game. This is taken away from the game. Craig, I love it. The fans taking control of their environment and doing something organic, and it just spills into something bigger. I love to see it.
Yeah, it's just a big surprise to see fans, watching the game in St. Louis. I thought this was going to be an empty year for them. As you mentioned, Donnie, they were always very good in terms of attendance. It's really what they've been built on. And then, of course, we saw over the weekend the Cardinals make the announcement that Ali Marmol is buying out sections of the stadium. But I gotta tell you, first of all, this is a fantastic idea. Okay, so let me not take anything away from that. Great idea. Shows you that they care, shows you that the manager cares as well. But that being said, Donnie, I want to see the receipt of Ali Marmol buying that. I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see that, and I want to see if there was a transaction that went back into Ali Marmol's account for buying all those tickets.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't. I mean, did he really? Like, Marmol bought all those tickets? Okay, I'll just say he did it. I still want to see the receipt, but it was a great scene for sure.
Yeah, it's almost like the direct deposit comes back in from Anheuser-Busch with like, oh, okay, that's where those funds came from. Looks great. But it is interesting, and you're right about this. Doing things right. Sometimes fans just ask for the team or people to buy in and support them here. Yeah, high expectations on the season. We didn't. So what did they do as as an ownership group? You know what? Cheap tickets. Come out to the ballpark. We're going to try to play as hard as we can, but if it doesn't go our way, you're going to have as much food as you want to eat and just enjoy the night as a family. Now you start to see something happen organic. And instead of trampling, like, hey, get the ushers up there. Put your shirts back on, people. You get it here in a tweet from the Cardinals. Like Ali Marmol, as Craig just said, bought the section out here. Free to fans, come claim your ticket. Now you get that groundswell. Now the people are on your side. And you might get the benefit of the doubt when things don't go so well, saying, you know what? These guys get what we're talking about. This was a year with expectations that weren't quite high, and maybe now we can at least enjoy ourselves. And let's hear from Ali Marmol on this.
Yeah, it was just a really cool environment for our players. And I've had several of the guys last night and this morning come in and just talk about how cool it was to play in that type of environment here at home at Busch, especially after a long road trip. So wanted to recreate it and take care of anybody that wants to sit in that section and get after it. It's been a minute since we felt that, right? And I said it before, you have to earn those guys coming back and fill in the stands. And our guys are playing in a certain way where they're getting after it every day. And to see their excitement behind yesterday's game, I just wanted to be able to do something. The commitment's been real, and they talked about it quite a bit during spring training. It's one thing to talk about it, nothing to do it. And the way they're coming together and just competing every day, playing hard regardless of situation, has been fun to watch. And it's something that we're committed to and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to. This is what it's about, to go into the summer, have a good time, come out to the ballpark, support this young group that's playing hard, and to be able to see that and witness it last night in that type of environment and walk it off. Just want to buy the tickets and recreate that and give them an opportunity to come back out.
Now, Craig, we've seen things in the past, like the dog pound in Cleveland, like really good sections of fan bases here. Could this now spur into something different? Like, hey, I want to sit in Big Mac land in left field. Maybe I'll get a home run out here and I can go viral. Do we have something in the future where this section could take off as the place that kids, or I don't say kids is the right thing, but young adults will gather and make it something here in the future? Could it be?
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe so. I wouldn't rule that out, Donnie. I think that it's a really well done situation in terms of promotional of what the Cardinals have tried to do. Look, they're a very well run organization too, and I'm rooting for them. I hope Even look, sometimes people make predictions and then they have to root against that to make their prediction come true. Yeah. I mean, for me, I hope this continues in St. Louis. But that being said, they have the second most road wins in Major League Baseball. Only 12-10 at home. That's number one. Number two, in that division, Cubs run differential plus 43, Brewers, Donnie, plus 62, Pittsburgh plus 24, Cardinals plus 5. Some of this stuff is going to even out, but if they can get a good environment at home and make it a competitive season, you take it.
Craig, I clicked on the link for us here to try to get some of these tickets. No, they're already sold out at this point. I can't wait to see what's going to take place. Could have been me and Craig in there. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Let's go, people. We'll be back.
We are going to be strapped with a whole lot of bad football, watching mediocre teams that have absolutely no business in the postseason getting blown off the field by the elite heavyweights, all for our viewing pleasure. They are even willing to trample right over the historic Army-Navy game, which apparently, we'll figure out at one point where we can play this game. The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I don't blame David Stearns at all for looking at the team and saying, hey, look, with this high payroll and with all the players we have, Donnie, they have not won anything. They did not even get in the postseason last year. So they're like, all right, let's break it up and try something new. But their new plan has not worked. It doesn't look good on paper. It doesn't look good in the standings. Even if the Mets were to play okay the rest of the season, I think their season is a wrap.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all four.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
Betting growth was up about 40% year over year in March. So some of that obviously was the NCAA tournament, but a lot of that is because DraftKings and FanDuel were coming to town and bringing a lot of money with them. It was about $87 million was bet in the month of March, which is not only a March record, but it's a record for Arkansas in general. And it was really interesting to note too, DraftKings and FanDuel were only active for about 12 days.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Enjoying some good baseball talk here on a Sunday. Fantastic stuff. It's Pro Baseball Today. It's Donnie Rightside, and it's Craig Mish. Hour number 2 underway. You might be enjoying your Sunday afternoon, maybe a little PGA Championship golf, but we do have monster Major League Baseball to talk about this week and have some fun. And those topics that we had in hour number 1. We talked about cockfighting. Yeah, we actually did that. Pitchers in Major League Baseball, Edwin Diaz. We talked about Oli Marmol saying, you know what? Come to the house on me. I'll pick up that tab, and even trying to get some tickets for those games here. Sold out. Wonder what that's going to look at here and how many tarps will be off in St. Louis. But, Craig, we got some good stuff coming up in Major League Baseball this week. It always rolls on. Look, May, June, July, August, September, October, into November, Craig. We're talking 7 months of baseball still to go with already a month and a half down.
It's going to be a fun week ahead. I see some of the matchups. They don't have the pizzazz, I think, that some of the rivalry matchups have. Yeah. But I think that there are some good ones too. Specifically, we'll get to it. The American League Central. Tigers have to start playing a little bit better baseball. They play the Guardians if they want to hang in there. How about the surprising White Sox off to a good start this season as well? So we'll get into it all.
I thought baseball made an interesting move here, Craig, and I'm glad you brought up rivalry week because some of these teams are rivals, some are not, and you should have to sort of play it out that way. But let me ask you this question. Growing up for both myself and you, Major League Baseball was, we don't see the American League in a National League city like Philadelphia. They come in the 1990s and make interleague play a thing. Has that worn out as welcome here? And I know Major League Baseball is not looking to go back on that because it was interesting. Like, hey, the American League doesn't play the National League, DH on one side, no DH on the other. How do you think interleague baseball has played out? And also, is there ever a chance they even go back to the National League and American League as a separate entity?
Well, the last thing is no, but everything else I think is in play. I don't think it's worn out its welcome. It just doesn't have the same luster that it did when you know that basically if you live, let's just say in St. Louis, that Detroit is going to come in every other year now, so it's just different. It's very similar to like the NFL model where eventually you're going to get to see the team that you like, even if you don't live in that city, end up playing. And so I think it's still fun. It doesn't have the zest that it had in the past when, let's just say that you live anywhere in the country. There's a lot of Yankee fans we know everywhere. Oh, the Yankees are coming to town. Well, the Yankees are coming to town now pretty much every other year, right? Like pretty much, or if not every 2 or 3 years, which when Interleague first started, it would be like once every 4 years. You'd look to see at the schedule who's on the schedule. But I still do think it is going to stay the way that it is now. The only thing that could happen in the future, Donnie, is you could see realignment. That I think is a possibility again, especially if they expand in a couple of years. And I do think baseball within the next 5 years will have 2 new teams, an expansion.
I mean, it's a crazy theory to think about of how like the American League and the National League did operate. It was like, they hated each other. There was 2 separate commissioners of each leagues here, and it was really important to win the All-Star game. And even growing up as a kid in the early 1990s, like, yes, I would watch Phillies baseball, but we used to also pick up, I think it was Channel 11 out of New York, and it was like a different world. Like you watch Yankees baseball with Scooter, Rizzuto calling the games.
Right.
Like, boy, I would love for Oakland to come to town. Now they come to town. It's a little bit worn out, but it is what it is at this point. And it was a very good thing at first because you got to see those American League teams that you didn't see. Now you see them all the time, as Craig points out. And the Phillies and the Mets felt like they played 100 times a year. Now don't play so much. Why? Because you have to play the American League teams here. But let's get started on some of those interesting series this week here. The Orioles and the Rays. We talked about the Rays in hour number 1. One of the best teams in Major League Baseball, 29-15 on the season, 7-3 in their last 10 games. They'll tangle with the Orioles. A disappointment so far, Craig, at 20-26. Pitching matchups here, Rogers versus McClanahan, Bradish versus Jacks, and Baz versus Schlattens this week. Do we see the Rays just continue to improve, or sooner than later? The O's got to make a comeback, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the week for them. What's interesting about this is that you get that trade 2 days in a row. Shane Baz, who it would appear, Donnie, to me that the Orioles really wanted Shane Baz to give up as much as they did prospect-wise to get him. It was shocking to see the Rays trade one of their best young pitchers to the Orioles. They're like, all right, you want him bad enough, go take it. And meanwhile, the guy that they got in return, Griffin Jacks, he's been great. I mean, he's been fantastic. He's pitching. He starts now. He pitches 3-4 innings, 5 innings sometimes. You got to be just in the danger zone when you're dealing with Tampa Bay. And the Orioles were not in that danger zone. Apparently, they thought that they could just get over on it. But we're going to see both of those pitchers go. McClanahan has been fantastic. I hope Trevor Rogers gets it going. Of course, he was out for a couple of weeks with an illness. But I would guess Tampa Bay wins the series. Winning 3 in a row is tough, But I mean, the Orioles are just not playing great.
As the saying goes, Craig, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Just keep on picking up those series victories and stacking victories. 29 of those so far for the Tampa Bay Rays. One series, Craig, we probably Red Sox and the Royals. Gray versus.
I mean, the Red Sox, not having Crochet and Roman Anthony, this is like a shell of what they were. At least Donnie, just being honest. Like if Boston could do that over again. And hindsight is just so easy. It's 2020. And we'll just go through our 90-loss season, Kansas City, because at least I think Kansas City can get better over the course of the season. I don't see it with Boston.
Getting bad at Fenway, too, by the way, Craig. We just talked about there. Not a good look for Boston here as they fight with the evil Empire, which will have a 4-game set to start the week, Craig, and 25. Corbin, Cease, Savage, and Miles will be on the mound here. For those Yankees, just looking to hang around with those Tampa Bay Rays.
Wednesday could be the pitching matchup of the week in baseball. That should be fun with Trey Savage back now for a few starts, and then Cam Schlittler pitching like a Cy Young Award series. I don't think that there's any guarantee that one or the 2 teams win. The Yankees, of course, had that really hot streak. Now they're back to their mid streak again, almost like in wanting to fire. We're almost at fire Boone time of the season. You know how that goes, Donnie. A bad week. Got to get rid of Aaron Boone. Jazz Chisholm starting to find himself a little bit here too. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. But I see kind of like here between these 2 teams.
I'm interested to see also the hit Sunday, Mondays, Craig. When are we going to start the move? 22-25 on the season, but only 2 games back of the lead out there. Miller and also Hancock, it looks like we'll be on the mound here for those Mariners. Wake up, Seattle. Sleepless out there.
Yeah, it's hard to fathom, and I guess the good news for Seattle is they don't face Davis Martin out of nowhere. This guy's been Murakami are like a deadly offense with those three guys. Like if you don't get those guys out, you're going to lose better season than we thought.
And also, sometimes it's a little bit of that luck. Where coming up next, keep it with Pro Baseball Today. On the preview of some series that are going to come up early into this week. Expectations sort of double down where sooner than later, you got to get your season jump started. If I told you, Craig, the Guardians are at the Tigers this week, and we're talking baseball about a month ago, yeah, probably the Tigers rolling along, and who knows what the Guardians are going to do, and will they be sellers? When you take a look at the standings right now in the Central, the first place team, no, it's not the Detroit Tigers. It's the Cleveland Guardians at 25-22, 7-3 in their last 10 ball games. Now they're playing the Tigers. Okay, what have the Tigers have been doing? Absolutely nothing, Craig. 20-26. Why? 2-8 in their last 10 ball games. Time is slipping away for the Tigers, injured in the front part of the road.
Series of the week because, look, it's a long year, and Detroit could win 10 in a row at any point. We saw the Guardians do this last season, right? So it really, in May, you can't say it's a series that defines the season. But I would say that Detroit has to at least win a game in the series or two. You know, like they got to stay alive in the fight here, because from a mental standpoint, you're at home, you're playing the team that you're supposed to beat. If you fall flat here, where's the confidence moving forward the rest of the season? So I do think, Donnie, that the Tigers will be there in the end. So I would expect at the very worst a split here. Hinch is a really good manager too. I don't want to discount anything with him. I think he's one of the best managers in baseball. I think he'll get his guys up for the series, and I expect Detroit to bounce back and win this one.
Yeah, take a look at some of these teams. Like early in the week on the early line, we had Tom Vecchio talking about like what to make of the Detroit Tigers, because sometimes you look and say it's not going well now. Can they rebound? And also, if they do get healthy by the end of the season, which means Skubal can make a comeback, what do they look like in the playoffs if they can still get that 1-2 punch back in the front around the rotation, which includes Framber Valdez? But this lineup too, like Kevin McGonigal, 291 batting average, love to see it. Colt Keith, 302, Riley Green, 327. Then it falls off here, Craig. 222 for Workman, 178 for McKinstry, 201 for Torkelson, 163 for Wenzel Perez, 213 for Matt Vierling. Like if you would have told me just a couple guys in that front line 1 through 4 were performing, yeah, just get some average baseball. It's just not clicking for the Tigers right now.
Yeah, Torkelson came alive last year, and we thought that this was the beginning of his future. Also, let's not forget to mention Kerry Carpenter, who was so good in platooning for them last year. The last couple of years, and really hasn't done much this year too. So Tigers are kind of going through it and losing, just in case. We got him as the 2. That has not worked out. Again, on the way the American League looks, I still think they very much have a shot.
Yeah, and have a 1-game lead over the White Sox, but over the Tigers, it's 4.5. That could turn into 6.5 at the end of the series. Well, for teams, probably not going anywhere.
And this guy, Woods Richardson, I know that he was good in the past. Yeah. I mean, this guy is getting absolutely destroyed every single time that he pitches. And this poor guy, would he give the money back, Donnie, to just go back overseas and not pitch with the Astros? I mean, this is, what is that total on Monday night? 9.5, 10? Does it even matter? Over Monday night on that game on Monday. Rest of the week, I don't know. Ryan is a good pitcher, so he'll do well. You know, this kid Zebby Matthews, who came up from Minnesota, he pitched really good. Maybe he has a good start. This is one of those where even if I wasn't working on the Marlins broadcast, it would be my 10th choice of the series of the week.
No doubt about it. By the way, we do early line best bets each and every night, Craig. And the matchup was so good. I'm taking the Marlins team totals 4.5 plus 102 against Woods Richardson. I only have to wait. It feels like 15 minutes of that ball game. I'm in good shape
Not
in this
even.
one at this point. So Craig is right about Woods Richardson. I think the Marlins ended up with 9 runs in that ball game, doubling what they were supposed to get according to quote unquote Vegas at this point. So yes, watch out for Woods Richardson there on Monday night. Athletics and the Angels, the first place Athletics taking on the last place Angels here. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a 4-game set. The Athletics can stay in first place. And then there's the Angels who, Craig, in the middle of May, seeming like we're just playing at the string once again here.
Yeah, when you got Jose Urena in the rotation, you have to ask yourself, where did it go wrong? No offense to Urena, but that's just the deal here. Boy, this is ugly coming for the Angels. The good news is that Soriano will pitch Thursday. He's a quality starter. But they're just not hitting enough. They're losing virtually every game. I think they have the longest losing streak going in baseball. Good for the A's. This kid Ginn has pitched well for them. Lopez has pitched pretty well too. Severino's going to go 4 or 5 innings every time he pitches. So I would expect the A's and Angels probably to play a more competitive series because the Angels are not going to lose 120 games this season. They're going to lose 100, but not 120. So my guess is the Angels probably pick 1 or 2 of these, but no interest for me in this one.
Now, we talk about competitive, and usually the Colorado Rockies don't come into mind here. They're going to take on the Rangers at home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Gore versus Quintana, Rocker versus Gordon, Leiter versus Freeland here. And the Rangers, you take a look at them in the standings right now. Sooner than later, they're going to have to make a move. 21-24, Craig. But as I pointed out, you're not far back. You're only 2 games out of first place with the A's in first place. You're supposed to beat up on those Colorado Rockies, Craig.
Texas should be better. I think they will be better. I don't know exactly what has gone wrong with them this season, but for them to be under 500, the run differential kind of tells you that they've been a little bit unlucky. So my guess is Texas will get better as the course of the season rolls on, and they'll be favored in all 3 of these matchups as well. Rockies are probably going to go over their win total this season, but not much beyond that. I expect Texas to win.
Look at that. We run out of time in this segment because the Angels are in this segment, and I don't have enough time to ask Craig when Mike Trout is going to be traded to those Philadelphia Phillies. His phone might be buzzing just now with that information, but we'll never know. We'll be back after the break. Over the summer where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like that.
To test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number 1, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Back talking about some of these upcoming series next week here and big doings here. How about those Atlanta Braves, one of the best teams in Major League Baseball? I guess you can call them the best. 31 wins on the season, 15 losses, 6-4 in their last 10 games. Very good at home, very good on the road, solid organization. They're going to take on the Marlins in Craig's neck of the woods. 4 games, Craig. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You look at the Marlins at 21-25 on the season, 10 games back. Come on, Craig, call it now. 3 or 4 games going to the Marlins here. Drag those Braves back to the pack. I could see it.
Hope so this week. I'll be on the sideline for the broadcast in these 4 games starting tomorrow. So it'll be a busy week for me. Look, I think, the trouble spot for Miami is when a left-handed pitcher goes. So naturally, that's that Wednesday matchup with Sale. Thursday is really the big marquee matchup. You have Strider and Sandy Alcantara. Sandy pitched very well for Miami on Saturday again. And Max Meyer, you could say, has been the Marlins' best starting pitcher. But Braves are going to throw 2 lefties at Miami, it would appear, this week. And that's kind of been the bugaboo for Miami. They've had a hard time hitting left-handed pitching. But I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun series this week. And that Tuesday game in particular, Donnie, the Marlins doing something very interesting. They're basically taking a shot, okay? So the Marlins decided to play 1 game this season during the week at 4 o'clock Eastern.
Whoa.
Just 1. This is it. They're just doing it Tuesday at 4 o'clock just to see what happens. They're going to see what the attendance looks like, if it's well received. I don't know what's going to come of it, but it is a rare afternoon game. I think it's probably the only game I'm going to guess that day before 6 o'clock.
Look at that, trying to capture the West Coast audience there, a little day game action. Let me ask you this, Craig. What is a day in the life of Craig Mish? Now, let's just go Monday, which is a night game. Perez versus Meyer. When do we get into the ballpark, and what do we actually do once we get to the ballpark? Take me through a Craig Mish day here.
Well, I've never done sideline before, so I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know. But after I get done with Newswire, I probably will leave almost right away. But the sideline role, since it's an in-game role, I don't have to get as earlier to the ballpark as I normally would when I'm doing pre- and post-game again, because my broadcast will start earlier before the game is concerned. But I think in this case, because they've been on the road, Monday, Donnie, sounds to me like a day that I have to prepare for the rest of the week in terms of things that I want to talk about throughout the game. So that preparation is already underway, looking at some of the potential stories that I'll do during the game. But having this be the first time I've ever done it, I really don't know what to expect. So I'm sorry, I don't really have a great answer for you. But if you ask me about Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm the analyst on the pre- and post-game show, so I know exactly how that works. I'll get to the park, go upstairs, put my stuff down, go down to the clubhouse, do my interviews, go hang out, do my meeting, and get ready for the show. But sideline's going to be a little bit different. The other thing, I don't have it with me. The other thing for sideline, Donnie, is I bought myself a metal clipboard for sideline.
Yes.
Because everybody has those. You know why they have those metal clipboards, Donnie, for the sideline?
To protect your head?
To protect myself if a foul ball comes in. I got a nice one there just in case. I am right there and I'm all set to go. So I don't know. We'll see. Everybody could watch Monday night and Tuesday afternoon to see how it goes for me, because I don't know.
MLB.tv. Catch Craig right there. I'll be watching through my app. By the way, Craig, let me ask you this question, because watching a lot of Phillies baseball, the sideline reporter sometimes has a lot more to do than just say how the baseball game is going. Are they going to have you in the stands, or maybe, hey, the Marlins have the biggest hot dog in the league tonight that they're serving?
That's
and
a
you
good
get to
question.
try stuff like that. I would love to see you roving around the ballpark. Give me updates on milkshakes and what they're doing. That's what we need to see out of Craig. That's what we need to see.
It's a good question. Those conversations have already happened. And I don't know if I'm that guy. That's kind of the direction that the conversation has been. Yeah, I think I'll get involved in shenanigans. I do.
Yeah.
And again, if they walk off, there's a chance I get hit by the Gatorade. That's possible too. But I don't know. I think I'm more of an informational reporter. So I don't know if wearing the Cuban sandwich hat is going to work for me on that broadcast. I don't know. I don't know that I'm that guy. We'll find out. We'll all find out together this week, because I literally have no idea.
Put you out in the drum section in right field there, like, hey, look at Craig banging on the drums with the boys out here. That's what we need out of Craig Mish. Make sure you tune in this week. Elevation for you, Craig, here. You're going to be known throughout the world being that sideline reporter. Love to see it here. How about the Mets and the Nationals? The Mets are just hoping to pick up a victory, a game or two here from the Nats. 4 games, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Big series for the Nationals. Are they in it to win it? Or are they just going to fall by the wayside? But the Mets here, they need every win they can get. Upstart Nationals versus the Mets this week, Craig.
So I guess if I look at that, it says Thornton there. So that tells me that that's potentially who the Mets may go to if, or not if, but when Clay Holmes misses his start. And so, look, naturally, anytime McLean starts, it's a good start for the Mets. Foster Griffin, who has been so good, I believe he got just destroyed this weekend, which was surprising to me because he's been so good. Littell, they usually throw an opener before him. Nationals have a chance to win the series, but let's just honestly, the Mets are not going to lose 100. They'll be better.
There you go. Reds, Phillies on deck next. Stick with us on Pro Baseball Today. Phillies and the Reds this week from Philadelphia. Take a look at this series, too, because you might say to yourself, well, the Phillies are playing much better baseball, and they are, but only 500 on the season, 23-23. And then you take a look and say, what are the Cincinnati Reds doing? You look at the standings. Oh, no, they're in last place, but they're still above 500 because of how successful the Central Division has been, at 24-22. 3 games set from Philadelphia, and once again, as we talked about, Craig, in New York with the Yankees and the Blue Jays, heat and humidity in a hitter's ballpark, it could be fun. The pitching matchups, Lodolo versus Painter, Burns versus Luzardo, Abbott versus Nola. You look at Andrew Painter, decent in his last start, Craig, 5 innings pitched, giving up the 1 earned run. The Phillies did lose that game, but it's been a roller coaster. Some good starts, some not good starts, because if you look at overall in the season, the ERA, 6.21. Nola, who got drilled in his last game, and the Phillies might be looking at, we gave this guy how many years and how much money? We might get some true fireworks in the ballpark at Citizens Bank this week, Craig.
Yeah, probably so. And the Reds, I think, will swing it a little bit better than they have in the early part of the year. But look, that matchup Tuesday is a real good one between Burns and Luzardo. Luzardo has been really good for them. And unfortunately for the Phillies, they can't pitch Sanchez every day. So he's got to wait another four days to pitch. But I think it'll be a competitive series. But the Phillies are just playing better baseball than the Reds right now. So I expect them probably to win 2 out of 3.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And by the way, Schwarber, 20 bombs on the season. Does he extend that here in the race to 70 bombs for Schwarb? It could be at this point. He's swinging that hot bat. Let's keep it moving. The Brewers and the Cubs, maybe the best overall series of the week, Craig. It's a 3-game set, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. When you look at the standings right now for the Chicago Cubs, first place, 29-17. You know who else is in second place? Yeah, that's the Milwaukee Brewers, 26-17. Coming this week, 8-2 in their past 10 games. That's the Milwaukee Brewers. The Cubs at 5-5. Pitching matchup: Sprout versus Imanaga, Mizorowski versus Brown, Harrison versus Cabrera. Big series. See who comes on top out of this 3-game set.
Yeah, and really all 6 of those pitchers look pretty good to me. So I think this is probably a low-scoring, interesting series. Of course, Mizorowski, who we thought maybe was hurt, but ended up just, breaking out of that lower leg issue that he had, and he's been great, pumping 102, 103 again. Harrison, what a nice acquisition he is for the Brewers, and Pat Murphy said, look, we're just going to rely on the pitching, piece together the hitting, and that's exactly what has happened. Look, the Cubs were not going to play 1,000 baseball, meaning winning every single game at home at Wrigley and winning every single game on the road. I mean, it had to end eventually. So yeah, this should be a fun series and one that's like a coin flip for me. I think it could go either way.
And how about this? We talk about these two teams battling for first and second place. We have another one of those series that's going to take place Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. Who is that? That's the Dodgers taking on the Pirates in San Diego. Looking at the standings right now, the Dodgers sort of resurrected themselves, going through a little bit of a bumpy stretch, but now sit at 28-18, have won 4 games in a row. But you take a look at the Padres here, 6-4 in their last 10 games, Craig, 27-18. Pitching matchups this week: Yamamoto, Ohtani, and Sheehan are going to go for the Los Angeles Dodgers. King, Canning, and Vasquez on the opposite side for the Padres. Hanging in there, taking over first place. Big series, Craig, by the end of this one.
Yeah, and I think I would really focus on Monday's game with Yamamoto because he has not looked the same as he did at the beginning of the season and even going back into the postseason last year. So, I mean, is it possible that a lot of wear and tear on that extended season that he had last year and pitching so deep into the World Series, maybe that's a factor? I'm not sure, but he just, to me, hasn't looked like the same pitcher that he was. Naturally, Ohtani's been absolutely unhittable and fantastic, but we know that when he pitches, he doesn't hit. So another low-scoring game there, too. But Dodgers now have won several in a row, so I would expect that to continue. And even if the Padres end up winning the division, I think the Dodgers are probably the better team.
Yep, we'll see what happens on Sunday here with the St. Louis Cardinals and at home fan base where you can't get any tickets to the tarp section here. Maybe that continues. Why? The Pirates are in town for a 4-game set. Tuesday, Wednesday. Actually, it looks like Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, they are off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so off on a 3-game set. There we go. 3-game set at this. Keller versus Liberatore. Majinski, love that name. Always tough to pronounce. Versus McGreevy and Ashcraft versus May here. The Pirates, take a look at the standings. 24-22, still above 500. But those Cards again, 27-18. Ollie's got the boys going. The fans are back, and they're back in town here. Pirates Cardinals.
That was a good attempt at the Majinski. I don't see any J's in that guy's name, by the way, Donnie. Carmen Modlinski. Modlinski is pitching. And by the way, you won't have to say his name, I don't think, much longer because Jared Jones is getting ready to come off the IL, and I would assume that he would take his spot in the rotation. Jones is going to be really good. He looks good in the minor leagues. He was great a couple of years ago, too. Look, I think the Pirates are the better team, but I'm not going to discount that what's going on right now. They got something special going on at Busch. And so, look, this is not Skeens week, right? So this gives the Cardinals, you would assume, a chance to win this series. I think that they may.
By the way, Craig, fun fact on this. 2 years ago, doing this show with Tom Vecchio, he first said his name to me. I said, you've got to be kidding me. But it actually is pronounced Majinski. Can you believe that from that name? Like, what do we do? Like, sometimes you get caught up on names where they just don't make sense. But if you're coming across that, like, talk real quick about the PGA Tour coming to Philadelphia, where you have some weird names around. And they ask a lot of the fans that come in from out of town, like, how do you pronounce, like, the Schuylkill River or Bryn Mawr at this point? And it's funny to see the way people react. But can you imagine, like, you're a first-time broadcaster going on the mound, and nobody told you this guy's name, where, let's just say he came out of the bullpen for the first time. Majinski. How does that happen? It's not even close to that. That's how you pronounce. Somebody's got to be playing a joke on us, Greg. I got to tell you.
You got that's why as a broadcaster you got to be prepared for all of that going into the game. That reminds me of I got a lot of homework to do, Donnie, before tomorrow.
Yeah. By the way, you say Mladenski on that, nobody's even going to question it. It's just a crazy name that pops up. But let's get to some of those fun markets, Craig, the prediction markets, and talk about the AL Cy Young winner for this season here. Who do you think it's going to be? How about at a 22% right now trading? That's Dylan Cease. How about 29%? Cam Schlittler, who took over once Tarek Skubal went down. Could it be, Craig, as you talked about, Schlittler in a different uniform other than the Yankees? Is he getting taxed a little bit? But he's currently listed here as the favorite odds-wise.
Yeah, and I think that's where this is a market you can attack because of that. Now, Aaron Judge, for good reason, should be the favorite and always will be. And it's not just because he's a Yankee; he's a great player. But this is just so early to really be stacking on Schlittler to me. And so I look, if Dylan Cease is healthy, I think that there's a buy here and cash out at some point too. And I also would not rule out Jose Soriano. I mean, look, everyone is waiting for the bottom to fall, and I know he hasn't been as good in May as he was in April. I get it, but he's still pitching well, and he's going to get, Donnie, no attention whatsoever. So if he stays healthy as the season goes on, you may be able to have a buyout on that too.
Yeah, the war of attrition, as you take a look, too, like, guys that you thought would be up there on the leaderboard early in the season, like Tarek Skubal, 1%. He's not going to pitch for 3 months. No chance he wins it. Garrett Crochet, injured as well. The one that I said at the beginning of the season, Craig, no way this guy can win the award. It's Jacob deGrom. He's listed at a 14% chance right now. But this is the guy I said wouldn't stay healthy or be able to pitch, 180-plus innings on the season. He's listed up there as one of the favorites right now, which brings us to another market here, Craig. MLB ERA leader. If you take a look right now, and the statistics show, Cam Schlittler, 1.35. Nick Martinez, 1.51. Davis Martin, 1.61.
Davis Martin.
Sanchez, 1.82. Chase Burns, 1.87. Some of these guys, filthy low numbers. And you say you're right. Look at Davis Martin out there for the White Sox dominating.
Yeah, and Skeens just with those 2-day starts, only reason why he's not leading this, by the way. But I think a nice opportunity could be your guy, Christopher Sanchez. I mean, Sanchez, the one thing that you like about that, and he's going very deep, Donnie, into games at a very young age. That's a great sign for him too. So that would be a nice buy for me too. I could see him climbing as the season goes on.
By the way, Craig, if you slide it down right now in Polymarket, and again, this, buying into it, let me see what the total volume is at this point right now. It doesn't show it on this list as it does sometimes for Kalshi, but as I go one, there's a guy named Carmen Majinski there at 1%, Craig. A 1.4% contract, $100 investment, $432 back. Come on, little Majinski to get this done, Craig. Perfect scenario.
Yeah, I'll take the other guys on the Pirates, all four of them, even Chandler before I get there.
Yeah, listed favorites right now in this market on Polymarket. Ohtani, by the way, at 20%. Paul Skeens at 19%, followed by Christopher Sanchez at 15%. And then a lot of guys behind him. Yamamoto, Skubal, which, come on, that's not even going to be eligible at the end of the year. Hunter Brown, name that we haven't talked about all that much. Max Fried, who's also getting checked out as well at 3%. Maybe it's a guy that comes up there a little bit lower on that list that can surprise, and we'll certainly find out. We'll keep you updated on all these markets and much more coming up next on Pro Baseball Today. Go over the summer where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like
to test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Right back out on PBT. Great time to talk on Sunday. And by the way, I always like to say to myself, I'm an expert, Craig, on TV talking about hamstring injuries. You give me a hamstring injury, I'll tell you you're out. I don't need to verify anything here. I just play a doctor on TV even though I'm not. I need Dr. Craig Mitchell on this one because this could help out those Detroit Tigers if they feel they can make a playoff run. How about this Kalshi Marketplace question? Tarek Skubals, next game played, Craig, before June 1st. That would be a miracle coming up in the next 2 weeks. That's why it's a 4% yes contract. Before June 8th, June 15th, June 22nd, or it looks like what? July 1st, July 13th. When do we get him back, Craig? And if you're looking at this marketplace, when would you think a good time to get in would be? Just saying, you know what? I'll take the long run here before July 13th. Or how about just a no contract? He's not coming back that early.
I mean, Scott Boras is doing a great job pumping this one, I mean, man, like every day we're getting Scooble updates and, he felt good throwing a ball and nothing. I'm still going to play the long game here. July would be the time for me. Maybe if you want to move that timeline a little bit up from what I said last week, from the 13th maybe to like the first week in July, I could see that being a possibility. But I do think, if I'm not mistaken, that he's going to have a rehab assignment here too. So that's going to mean at least 2 or 3 starts for him, moving his way up from single to double to AAA. Look, I understand when there's not a lot of injury information out there, and the agent is doing such a phenomenal job putting information out there, again, because this is his free agent season. Donnie, keep in mind, there have been pitchers just as good, if not better than Scooble, but very rare to go into a free agency situation. And so that's why you're hearing so much about this. By the way, it has nothing to do with him or the Tigers. It has to do with his contract coming up. So I'll move it up a little bit. I see some good news on him potentially, but I'm not going to fall victim to thinking he's back in 2 weeks. It's ridiculous.
Come on, Craig. The best surgery we've ever seen happen here. And by the way, if you're thinking that last date that's listed before July 13, 2026, it's important because the Philadelphia Phillies had the All-Star game this year. July 14th is that date. And if you say, you know what, I'm going to bet against all these positive stories, a no contract, which means he doesn't pitch, Craig, before July 13th, that $100 investment pays back $278, just to keep an eye on that. You're right about one thing. They're not going to rush this guy back. There's way too much on the table for the Tigers and also for the future of this pitcher, which has a lot of money in his future. How about this one, Kalshi, Craig? Nobody wants to be known for this. What is that? The longest regular season losing streak. 75% chance it's going to be those New York Metropolitans who have already lost 12 games in a row this year. The yes contract on the New York Mets to be the leaders at the end of the season with that longest run of poor play. A $100 investment only pays back $136. So, Craig, I ask you this question. Is somebody going to go to lucky 13 this year with a losing streak? Sure.
I'm going to take the Angels. Yeah, I'm going to take the Angels. Yeah, I mean, I know they're on a mini burner right now, but the thing is that there are bad teams, but then there are teams that have like these players that just don't belong, like the Angels have on their squad, that you could see them just moving everybody out. This team to me is in store for, I think, a mega losing streak. It feels like what happens with the reason why, Donnie, that you never want to put Colorado in this category is because no matter how bad they are, they always win at home. They always win a game or two at home. They may lose 100 games, but somehow they're like 5 games under at home, something like that. So stay away from that. White Sox are playing better baseball. Yeah, Mets could certainly do it, but they'll get Lindor back at some point. I don't know how much. David Stearns just signed all these guys in the offseason and redid the team. You think all of a sudden he's going to punt? No, but the Angels will. I got the Angels doing it.
Now, also, as you're right, on that mini burner, we'll find out what happens on Sunday, but you take a look at the Angels, losers of 5 games in a row, but also those Kansas City Royals halfway home to 12 at losers at 6 games in a row. But there's a reason why the yes contract is 6 cents here for the Angels, and the same thing with Kansas City, who actually has a game already in hand, only 2% listed. Not long to go, but if you do take those Angels, Craig, $100 investment comes back at $1,667 if they get 13 plus. And why, babe? Don't stop at 13. Pile it on. 14 losses, 15, 16, and away you go. The home run marketplace heating up. Why now, Craig? Northeast, hotter temperatures. Nobody hotter right now than Kyle Schwarber. But how about this? 50-plus home run season. Not just one guy. You can have multiple guys do that. The leader right now to have a 50 home run season, you probably thought would be Schwarber because he got 20 bombs here to, I think, 16 for Aaron Judge. But Judge actually have the highest percentage here at 56% chance to hit 50 home runs in a yes contract at 57 cents. Then Kyle Schwarber right behind him here, Craig, at 49% as a chance.
Yeah, that's surprising to me. Yeah, I mean, they both will, but it is surprising to me to see Schwarber below Judge at this point. And I guess part of it, too, is that Donnie, with Stanton being out and Jazz, who's now picking it up a little bit, but, that middle of the lineup, Donnie, you see Judge there, it's like ball 1, ball 2. All right, you try to hit ball 3. Okay, ball 3, and then Judge takes his walk, and that could keep going over the course of the year. The one guy that got really hot last year that I don't want to discount for this year is Nick Kurtz of the A's. I know it hasn't been the start that he wanted to get off to, but as you mentioned, summer, Sacramento, he would be somebody that I think that is a nice little buy opportunity.
I'll tell you what's fun, too. You look at the standings right now in the home run race, essentially. It's 20 home runs for Kyle Schwarber, 17 out of Murakami there for the Chicago White Sox, followed by Judge. Buxton has 15, and Yordan Alvarez at 15 as well. And then there's Matt Olson there of the Atlanta Braves. Now, I did see the talk coming out of there, maybe a little struggle with his elbow at that point. But Murakami to hit 50 home runs is a 16-cent contract to the yes. $100 investment pays back $625. And again, it's not a market like, who's first to 50 or there's only one 50 home run hitter. You can hit multiple markets here, but again, Judge and Schwarber listed as the favorite. Here we go. Analytics. Let's get after it. The pro baseball war leader, Ohtani, the favorite, Craig. 44% chance. Judge, 28% chance. Nico Horner, 21% chance. Bobby Witt and Olsen. And by the way, Horner's got a 21% chance, Craig, but his yes contract, only 2 cents, which means $100 investment pays back $5,000 there. That's an interesting split.
Yeah, it is. And look, this is wide open. And the guy to me that at the end of the season could get there, and he's really not close right now, would be Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians. Ramirez's batting average, and you factor all of these things into WAR, it's very low, but he's stealing a ton of bases. So if that comes up in terms of where he usually is, and he ends up stealing 40 or 50, Donnie, he's got a shot, I think, to do this. So that would be the one guy. And even if he doesn't lead in WAR, again, you can cash out if he finishes 3rd, 4th, 5th, etc.
Now, I don't know if you're looking or not, Craig. Do you know who actually leads WAR in baseball right now? Which player? Do you know?
I do not know. Schlittler?
It's Andy Pages, 3.1 WAR, followed by Bobby Witt at a 3 right now. I don't know if pitchers are included in this, so they're just the position players.
Yeah,
how about shout-out Pot? Yeah, good old Andy Pages out there. Majinski, Pages, same thing. We'll be right back. Pro baseball wins this season. A couple teams we want to talk about to end the show, and a team that we've talked about quite a bit here so far, Craig. That's the San Francisco Giants, currently sitting here at 19-27 on the season. If we're taking a look on the Kalshi marketplace to find out where they might be, if you get as level to par as possible, a 51% chance to have 75-plus wins on this Major League Baseball season. The yes contract there comes back at 57 cents, which means a $100 investment on 75 or more wins would pay back 176. Do we think, Craig, the San Francisco Giants could just play decent baseball and get to 75 wins, or no?
Yeah, I do. I think that they're going to get better as the season goes on here. I don't think that they're necessarily, Donnie, a 500 team. Yep. My strategy on this one may be to let the negativity set in a little bit more, like have them go another 2-4 over 6 games and then buy in. Look, they're a competitive team. They just did not have a good 40 or 50 first games. You saw them play well against the Dodgers. I mean, they split that series that they played against them. I think that the negativity is sort of playing into this price here regarding the manager and regarding everything that's happened. I do think Devers will get hot. Yes, I do think there's a chance the Giants get there. I'm not bearish like some other people are on them. And I don't think they're good, Donnie. Let's not get it twisted here. But 75 wins is not a lot for a team with this talent.
Yeah, take a look at the Kansas City Royals, 19-27. They're dead last in their division. The thing I like about the Kalshi marketplace and those predictive markets, you can have that sliding scale where you go back to January. Their forecast was roughly 82.2 wins here. They actually crested, it looks like, at 83.6 wins and then hit a low point, which came up on April. It looks like is at the 28th or so, around 76, 77 wins. And then currently sit now, 77 wins. So if you look at the Kalshi marketplace right now, a 63% chance to have a 75-plus win season. That current contract is at 63 cents, which means a $100 investment pays back $159. Sometimes, Craig, I look at these markets and say to myself, is this a team that's going to sell at the deadline here and ruin that? I don't think so for Kansas City. It seems like, Craig, there's only one way to go, and that's the possibility of going up at this point.
I hope so. It is a little weird. Yeah. They do have players that should be playing better. So you would assume that things will get better, but this is one of those, I think non-tangible things for me, Donnie, that I would just say to pass on because, not being there and not covering them and not watching them every day like I'm watching some others. And yes, we're looking at stats. That's the one thing that baseball does provide more than any other sport, gives you the opportunity to see it. But what is the explanation for taking Jack Caglione in the first round and him being nothing thus far? What is the explanation for Vinny Pasquantino, who was the hero for Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic, and everybody is saying, oh, he's going to have a huge year, and then nothing at all. And their pitching going sideways too. So I tend to agree with you that they should be playing better, but sometimes there are just lost seasons in baseball. So I'm just going to carefully bow out on the Royals just not being clear on where they're headed.
Bowing out there on those Houston Astros at this point and early in the season, trading at a forecast around 92-93. This is before the season actually started. Had a cresting point. Now it just seems like they're going down. Look at that graph, Craig. You have a nice little plateau, and then it's been nothing after that. It looks like they're trading right now currently at 74 wins on the season, which means the Kalshi marketplace goes by 5-win intervals. 75-plus wins for those Houston Astros. That's a 49% contract to the yes, which a $100 investment pays back $205, Craig. I'm not high on this team. Look, again, 75 wins for the Astros is terrible, but this team might not even look the same as where we stand today by the time we get to that deadline.
I would agree. I mean, I would assume that Altuve is the lifer there, and they wouldn't dare trade Jose Altuve anywhere else, let him retire as a member of the Astros over the next couple of years. And I would assume that Yordan is, that would be the end of people showing up there ever in Houston if they traded Alvarez. But beyond those two, Donnie, who's to say that guys aren't moved, and is Hunter Brown even going to come back? I'm with you. I don't think that they get to 75 wins. I'm not even sure that they get to 70 wins. I think this Houston team is a complete punt at the deadline. Would be kind of sad to go into a year where you think you're going to win in the 80s and you lose 100, but it happens in baseball. Hader, again, as we talked about earlier in the show, that is the key name. If he's healthy and he's pitching well, you see what Mason Miller does for San Diego. That is what Hader does for Houston. Imagine him in a winning situation and chasing a postseason. I could see them moving him.
How about those fighting Phils? 8-18 on the season, now back to 500. You take a look at the Kalshi marketplace, currently trading at 86 wins on the season, which means 80-plus wins trading at 79% is a chance, 85-plus wins, Craig, at 55%, and then 90 wins at 32% here. Things looking much better for the Philadelphia Phillies here with a legitimate chance to make the playoffs and win 85-plus games this year.
It could happen. I think their number is right around there, though, because the Braves just look very strong. In the head-to-head matchups, I probably still favor the Braves, but Phillies will be much better from here on out than they were in the first couple months.
That'll do it for a show on a Sunday here. Pro baseball today in mid-May. Heat and humidity into the ballparks. And Craig, to the sidelines there, Major League Baseball. We'll see you next Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your day.
We are going to be strapped with a whole lot of bad football, watching mediocre teams that have absolutely no business in the postseason getting blown off the field by the elite heavyweights, all for our viewing pleasure. They are even willing to trample right over the historic Army-Navy game, which apparently, we'll figure out at one point where we can play this game.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I don't blame David Stearns at all for looking at the team and saying, hey, look, with this high payroll and with all the players we have, Donnie, they have not won anything. They did not even get in the postseason last year. So they're like, all right, let's break it up and try something new. But their new plan has not worked. It doesn't look good on paper. It doesn't look good in the standings. Even if the Mets were to play okay the rest of the season, I think their season is a wrap.
Pro baseball today, only on SportsGrid.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all four.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
Betting growth was up about 40% year over year in March, so some of that obviously was the NCAA tournament, but a lot of that is because DraftKings and FanDuel were coming to town and bringing a lot of money with them. It was about $87 million was bet in the month of March, which is not only a March record, but it's a record for Arkansas in general. And it was really interesting to note too, DraftKings and FanDuel were only active for about 12 days.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.